So it was nice chatting with you lads simultaneously. I enjoyed it.
I can't see a damn thing.
Don't hang up when we end this. I need to talk to you.
What? Why? Who?
Just
Like, is it personal?
Can I be here?
That's up to the person I'm speaking with.
I mean, I don't know what you're gonna talk about. Right, okay, well, okay. I'll edit that bit out.
Yeah,
All right, so subscribe below, like if you liked it. Thanks for watching. This has been Conversations in Sunglasses with Nick Aston and Matt Paul. Fare thee well. Oh, I was about to hang up. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there.
Wait, so what's up?
Okay, I'm gonna take my sunglasses off. And
I'm gonna grab a beer.
Closer. Can you hear me better now?
Not really, but I can hear you.
Better. I don't know where the speaker is.
I can hear you.
Questions for you.
What?
About the whole house thing. Does
that
Matt know?
What?
Does Matt know?
Not yet.
Do you want him to not know yet? I mean,
no, I'm gonna talk to him about it later. Like I'd rather not get into it right now just because of my mood. Like I need to maintain joy. Like we have another thing we're working on that I need to be in the right headspace for. Okay. And I think if I talk about that, I won't be in that right headspace.
Okay.
And I'll have more information next week, probably on like more specifics. I mean, because there's a lot I don't know. Like I don't know specifics right now, like timeline or what options are. I mean, it's yeah. I'd rather not get into it right this minute. Like just if I get into it, there's no way to get into it a little, like lightly.
Okay. Can we talk
and I don't want to wreck my mood. What?
When will you be done with these projects?
I don't know.
The we talk about this, the better.
Like you can talk to me about it tomorrow.
Okay.
And I mean, it's not a secret. I just
you need to be in the right headspace.
Yeah, I'm trying to maintain my productivity, my happiness.
Okay.
And is it recording?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, cool. So we planned out our podcast and it's 4 a.m.
It's 4 a.m.
It's 4 a.m, so he's going home, but it went well. The end.
I'll text you when I get home.
Do that. I'll text you when I'm still home.
Okay.
Okay, so a lot has happened since those two scenes, and even between those two scenes that you just saw from April 9th and 10th. It is now May 1st as I'm filming this. So a lot has happened. And I haven't been consistently filming because just so much has been happening, and I sort of lost the plot of, like, usually I have some idea what I'm going for when I am vlogging. Like, I kind of know what the story is, but April, I had no idea. It was going in so many directions at once. But now I'm on the other end of it for the most part, and I have quite a story to tell. And I mean, it's by no means over, but things are looking much better. So here is what happened between those two scenes that you just saw. So after I hung up with Nick, Matt and I shared our topic ideas for our podcast, and we figured out which ones we wanted to do, and it was really fun. And I got to forget about all my problems for a while. And then we I had told him before he even arrived that I needed to talk to him about something serious after we do all the podcasting stuff. Like, I had told him that there was stuff going on earlier, but that I didn't get into it. But I told him I needed to fill him in because I wanted all my closest friends, my more or less everyday contact kind of friends, to know what was going on with me. And that was, again, if you watched the previous vlog that I put up, is kind of the dueling Glens up here. One of them is giving up and one of them is making plans and setting the groundwork for a long and happy future. So it's the hopeful Glenn who is like determined to let all the closest people know what is going on with me so that the hopeless Glenn can't give up. Like, can't get away with it. I mean, that's why it was hopeful Glenn who basically exposed hopeless Glenn's plot in the previous vlog. The plan to disappear. The more people who know that stuff, the less likely I will be able to get away with it. Even though I do want to get away with it, but the other part of me does not want that part of me. I'm a crazy person, as it turns out. I've been watching Moon Knight the last couple weeks, and I find it frighteningly relatable. It's like a very exaggerated version of what I feel like is going on in my head. So, after we finished with our podcast stuff, which went really well, as I'm recording this, we've already recorded the first episode. So, that's definitely a thing that's happening. But I told Matt, and I had told Nick Aston and Zach, because they had texted me on the 8th, which was the day I lost my mind. So they got to have a full text interaction with Crazy Glenn. So they knew what was going on and that I was not in a good place. They knew I was losing the house and that I was losing my mind. And so I told Matt everything that was going on just because, I want everyone to know. I want everyone, I don't want to just disappear without a word. I want everyone to know what's going on. And, my plan for that conversation was make more plans with Matt. Like, we go on weird excursions from time to time. I was thinking the more of those I plan with Matt, I'm not going to not show up for something I've agreed to do with a friend. So I'm not going to disappear until I've seen through all of our plans. So make lots of plans for excursions that don't require the house. Because in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to be living in my car. And every now and again, renting a hotel room to get things done. And I'm telling this story out of order. I need to back up a minute and tell you what actually happened on the 8th so that you'll know what I told Zach and Nick Aston and Matt. And what sucks is I still have to respect, well, I don't have to, but I choose to respect other people's anonymity, because what happened with the house on the 8th involves choices other people made that directly impact my fate, basically. It has to do with the mortgage, like my mother's estate, just all kinds of stuff, like. And I had mentioned in the previous vlog that, not the only way to save the house was not entirely something that I had any control over, because there was another person involved who I said was going to have to decide whether or not I was worth saving, and they decided I was not, is the short version of that. Like I was given every reason to think there was nothing else I could do. And okay, so the 8th is when I found out that the person, it's like I've been doing all this fighting to save the house, fighting to get this job so that, I can tell the mortgage people, because, and again, I'm popcorning this, not entirely in order. It's like there's so much going on. But, during COVID, I hit hard times and wasn't always able to make the mortgage payment. And so we made a deal, or we had an arrangement with the mortgage company that for X number of months, all of those mortgage payments wouldn't be due, and they would be put at the end. They'd be deferred to the end of the loan so that they wouldn't be late. It's just that I'd have to pay a little longer to pay off the house. But then the mortgage company sold the mortgage to another company, and that deal went out the window. And so when I said I was probably going to lose the house, it was when I found out that, and I'm trying to remember the exact sequence of events, but I'm pretty sure that was when I found out that they wanted 30 grand by May 6th, or they were going to foreclose on the house. And I'm like, crap, can't do that. So I wanted to try to renegotiate deferment, but I didn't have any ground to stand on by myself in order to do that, even though I could make the mortgage payments moving forward. I could not qualify for, as a Lyft driver, you're contract labor. You can't even get an apartment without a cosigner if you're contract labor. Like, it makes people very nervous because I'm not technically employed. I don't have a guaranteed paycheck, and that's why I was trying to get a guaranteed paycheck. Long story short, I was left to my own devices, and there was no way that I was going to be able to negotiate that with my financial history and my current state of employment and all of that. So what really caused me to lose my mind was finding out how much other people had already given up on me. That I was doing all of this fighting, barely not giving up on myself, and finding out that some of the people I needed to be in my corner had completely given up on me. And just, even though they knew I was just waiting on this job offer, that was really my only hope, was getting this job offer. And it seemed like a mere formality, because why would they be sending me this stuff to go through the steps if they weren't going to offer me the job? But it didn't matter, because I found out on the 8th, one of them was already making plans to gut my house in 2 days, and that I had unknowingly thwarted those plans by being just in a difficult, I can't cope with you right now state of mind, which is good, because if I had been more accommodating, I wouldn't have known what was coming. That they'd found people to sell all my furniture to, and were going to rent a dumpster to throw everything else away, and then assumed I could find somewhere to live in the DFW area for mere hundreds of dollars a month. And it devastated me to know that I was basically going to be thrown out with the trash, and that I didn't have any power to turn everything around. Like, I didn't have anyone else who could help me but the person who was gonna rent a dumpster for me. And it turns out there was a lot more to the story. So that's where I got to the point where I'm like, I am losing my house because I didn't have any more information. So on the 9th, after we filmed that Conversations in Sunglasses with Nick, Matt and I did our thing and then did our podcast planning thing. And then I spilled it. I told him, here's what's up. And that's what I told him. I told him all of that with far more details than I am able to give on YouTube. Or that I'm willing to give on YouTube, I should say. And I'm thinking, I'm just going to see if we can make more plans in the future so that I don't give up, even though I'm going to be homeless. But then Matt starts throwing out other possibilities. And like, I was trying to get in touch with the mortgage company myself, like trying to talk to them to see what my options are and hope that I could, find out what the timeline was, because obviously they were going to foreclose on May 6th. There was nothing I could do to raise 30 grand. There was no one who could help me with that. I wasn't even going to ask. But, my only hope was deferment, which didn't seem like a possibility. So, but then Matt, we were up till 4 a.m. talking. We had a really long, really deep conversation about the future. And basically he brought up an old idea we'd had that we'd kind of walked away from, which was him moving in here. Which we'd kind of been talking about for 2 years, off and on. And so Matt starts throwing that out as a possibility. Like, what if I moved in here? What if I, instead of looking for an apartment, moved in here? And that he hadn't wanted to before, even though he had wanted to before, because it would mean change. Like, it would mean evolving a friendship that we both hold really sacred. And I think I pointed out just the nature of our friendship is such that that's always going to be happening. Regardless, we have the kind of friendship that goes through things. We have the kind of friendship where if one of us is going through something, the other one is going to be there. We're always going to have each other's backs. That's always going to take us in new and unexpected directions, We're always going to be getting closer. It's always going to be evolving. It can't stay exactly the same forever. We really enjoy hanging out and talking until 4 a.m. every now and again, once or twice a month or so, usually. It's kind of like not wanting to take things for granted, if we see each other too much. But yeah, so that point was made, and then suddenly he's incredibly enthusiastic about the possibility of moving in here. And I had to point out, it's most likely I'm going to lose the house anyway. I don't know that having a roommate would help me much if I don't have a stable job. If I'm going to try to negotiate forbearance for the mortgage, for the 30 grand that they want by the 6th. But, we decided to start making plans anyway, just in case it would help, to be able to tell them I have a roommate lined up and that I have a job all but lined up. It hadn't been actually officially offered to me, but I could spin it. I could spin it on the phone. And these people don't have an office. You have to talk to them on the phone, which is why they're so hard to get a hold of. So after he left, I felt more hopeful because by then I had gotten the link to get in the system for this job so that I could be offered a job if they chose to. They just hadn't offered it. So that had me a little bit more hopeful. And then, I have Nick Aston and Zach, who knew what was going on, reaching out and checking up on me, and because they had to talk to Crazy Glenn. Matt kind of killed Crazy Glenn that night, which was appreciated. Because I got to get all the venom out of my spirit. My spirit was poisoned by all of that, by feeling like my entire worth to someone is sell it, put it in a dumpster in 2 days. Good luck. I felt valuable again. I felt really valuable that someone was not just willing, but really enthusiastic about fully changing course for me. And so then, this is a long story, y'all. I'm gonna get to the point. It's not gonna be as long as the last video, though. I hope. So over the next few days, it's kind of that was the moment. That night, talking with Matt, was my luck dragon moment. I talked about in the last video, trudging through the swamps of sadness, in the Neverending Story. And like I said before, the Neverending Story is about a little boy fighting through a deep, dark depression. Spoilers ahead, but, watch the movie anyway. It's really good. So this little boy Bastian, his mother died. And he's kind of, he's a dreamer. He draws unicorns in class and gets in trouble for it. And his dad's like, all right, get over it. Your mom's been dead a while. Get your head out of the clouds. It's very relatable to me as a creative person. You do escape into fantasies. You process things there. That's where you process reality. And that's really what the Neverending Story is. Because this little boy Bastian finds an escape in this book, and he finds these characters in this fictional world really relatable, and they're dealing with something equal to his depression. There's this nothing that's erasing their world, basically. So, the one key point that I was mentioning last time was the swamps of sadness, where in this book, the hero Atreyu, and his horse Artax are going through the swamps of sadness. They're trying to find a way to stop the nothing from erasing their world. And the swamps of sadness have this magical quality that they just suck the hope out of you. It's hard, it gets harder to trudge through the farther you walk. Your feet get heavier and heavier, and it's just trying to make you give up. Just stop. Just lose all hope and sink into the mud and die. And, no matter how bad it gets, it's like his horse dies in the swamps of sadness. And it's the most gut-wrenching scene in the whole movie, but it's also the most important scene in the whole movie. It is the swamps of sadness are that's the most important scene in that entire film. Because while he and his horse are trying to get through, there's this monster that's the servant of the Nothing called the Gmork who's tracking them. And he's trying to kill them because they're trying to stop the Nothing. And so the swamps are trying to take away all of Atreyu's ability to move forward. And then his horse dies. And he does everything he can to try to save his horse. But you can't stop a person from giving up once they've given up. You can't do anything. And that's what he had to learn the hard way, and his heart was broken on top of being in this mystical place where, for no reason at all, he's being robbed of hope by just the mud. And the monster, the Gmork, is getting closer and closer to him, and he's about to get torn up. His horse is dead, he's about to get torn up by this wolf monster. And, why wouldn't he just sink into the mud? But he doesn't. He just keeps walking. Listlessly. Heartbroken. He just keeps putting one foot in front of the other. And he has no reason to believe he's ever getting out of this swamp. None. Because he can't see the end of it. He's beaten. But he keeps moving forward. And just as the Gmork is about to jump him, this luck dragon comes flying out of the clouds and goes down and flies right over him, and Atreyu reaches up and grabs his paw and gets pulled out of the swamps of sadness. And if he had given up when his horse died, if he had just given up and stopped moving, he never would have gotten there. He never would have crossed paths. He would have been long gone before the luck dragon was flying over the swamps of sadness. And I find that story so powerful and so relatable, because I feel like that's what I've been doing. I've been trudging through the swamps of sadness, and I didn't realize I was foreshadowing in the last episode when I mentioned the possibility of a luck dragon in the future, that that I want to give the universe every opportunity to lend me a hand and get me out of this mess. And so I kept putting one foot in front of the other, even though I didn't see any way out. Like, I figured I was done for, but I kept moving. And I feel like Matt offering to move in was my luck dragon moment. And I didn't even know it at the time. Like, in that moment, it seemed like just a silly, like, not silly, that's the wrong word, but just a fantasy, just a comforting fantasy, because that wouldn't help. In the long run, that wasn't going to change anything. But we could go ahead and plan that. But from that moment forward, everything started turning around. I got the job offer. I accepted the job offer. I finally got the mortgage people on the phone. And despite having been told before that they wouldn't talk to me and that there weren't any options, the person I talked to was very helpful. And I was on the phone with her for a long time. And so now I'm waiting on a packet in the mail. And I told her, I have a roommate lined up for immediately. I have another roommate lined up for December, January-ish. I have been offered a new job and accepted it. I just haven't started it yet. I'm currently a Lyft driver. And yeah, all of those things helped. So now I'm in a process, and it's still possible I'm going to lose the house, but it doesn't seem like the most likely outcome anymore. It really feels like we're going to save the house, and Matt's going to move in on May 7th, and it's life-changing for both of us, but it's taking both of us in positive directions. It's taking both of us in directions we've wanted to be going in, and it's like we're each giving the other so much opportunity by this team up, I guess you would call it. So yeah, I mean, the only real X factor, and his financial stuff is going to factor into what we fill out in the paperwork as well. So I'm not alone anymore. I do have a stable job to use to write down all the information. I think I'm going to make it. And it's the first time in years that I felt just so hopeful about everything. I just finished my first week of the new job on Friday. I started Monday. And I mean, so far it's going really well. Just everything is moving in a positive direction in my life. Suddenly, after 9 years of hell, suddenly there's a luck dragon. And I'm so glad that I never stopped moving. I'm so glad that I gave that luck dragon an opportunity to find me and pull me out of the mud. Even when, you can't anticipate a luck dragon flying out of the clouds. You can't plan on that. But if you give up, it's not going to happen, I guess. And so really, I mean, back to the Neverending Story as a metaphor for fighting through depression and embracing hope and luck dragons. I'm going to spoil the ending, so if you don't want that, skip ahead a few minutes. It won't take long. So the other thing I think is so profound in that story is that the fictional world of the book is, in fact, annihilated. And the little boy who'd been reading the book winds up with a single grain of sand from that world in his hand. And with that single grain of sand, he winds up being able to rebuild everything. So if you have even a single grain of sand's worth of hope in you anywhere, if you can just keep moving forward, you have enough hope to rebuild everything. So I'm going to wrap this vlog up. by going back in time again and showing you some footage from the very end of another overnight conversation I had with Matt 4 days after we decided to become roommates. We're just kind of solidifying our plans in this conversation. But I think it's a really powerful moment, and that's why I want to end the video looking back at it. So before I shoot you through the wormhole, thank you for following my journey. It's far from over, and I'm far from alone. But it's also, it comes down to what the mortgage company is going to throw at me. Like,
Okay.
how, because they want this 30 grand, I can't give it to them. Like, are they going to
Right.
add
Obviously.
to the monthly rate? And is that the way that I save the house? In which case, it would be higher. It might be closer to 1,000. But what I would do is, I'd be willing to take on the bulk of expenses. If it came down to I'm gonna pay my portion plus the utilities, if I could manage it,
Yeah.
like I'll try to make it fit into. Well, I'll have to make it fit into what you're able to pay, because it's also
Well-
gonna have to fit into what I'm able to pay, which
And,
isn't gonna
I'm
be
not-
much different. Because if I get this job, I think I'll be making $1 more than you an hour. So
Right.
we'll be in the same budgetary spot, pretty much.
Right. And that's how I'd prefer. I don't know. I was about to say something that sounds very presumptuous, but
Mhm.
mostly like, I'm just gonna say it anyway because it's Glenn. I'd prefer you look at like my income as like the household income as well.
Mhm.
Is like, if I'm going to live there, as you said, it's more like, I'll do my best to pay what needs to be paid.
Mhm.
Like, basically what I'm saying is I will struggle with you, brother.
I love you, man. I really do.